What is up, everyone? PlutoCoffins is here for another video. Today we're going to be covering Islam. I know some of you want me to cover Islam, especially John Campbell, who I cover a lot. He's always complaining to me like, "You need to cover Islam. It's the Muslims. Cover the Muslims. Why are you always covering Christians? It's because Christians are right." Well, here's a Muslim video just to equal things out a little bit for y'all, mainly for the Christians complaining, right? Because I've covered Muslims in the past, I've covered Islam in the past, but this video is why some atheists don't accept Islam, the real obstacle. All right, you spelled obstacle wrong. It's by Imran Hussein Epelukopakopoku. And that's this guy. Who is your God? Let's see what he's got to say.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope everyone is well. So in this,
I can't even say their words. You know what I mean? Oh, that's kind of racist. I shouldn't be saying that. That's not an argument against them. That's just me being a piece of shit. I need to quit talking like that. Cause like for real, that's not really like me saying that. It might be funny, but fucking, it's not an argument against what he's saying.
video, I want to share with you what I believe is the number one reason as to why more atheists aren't coming to Islam.
What's the number one reason more atheists aren't coming to Islam?
Because many atheists have left that way of life.
Many? Who? Because there might be some, but I don't know about many. Like many, that implies a lot. There's probably some, right? Maybe like 1% of atheists. But many's like what, 10% or something? I don't buy it.
That ideology, that worldview, and have accepted Islam. But there is a fundamental reason. There is a wall, the great wall between atheism or atheists coming to Islam. Now let me start off by mentioning the non-reasons.
Yeah, the wall. There is a wall to atheists coming to Islam because, atheists don't believe in God. So, you have to convince them that God's real. And then on top of that, you got to convince them that Islam is the correct religion. God damn it, my stupid cat just knocked down something. Well, that's fixed. But anyways, oh shit. And I fucked up the video. Thanks, Fritz. Nah, I love the little fucker. But fucking, yeah, you gotta convince them that Islam is the correct religion in the first place, right? And like, I'm an atheist, but I used to be a Christian. And I had to come out of being a Christian, right? I had to figure out how to think for myself and ask questions and shit, because I was taught not to ask questions. I was taught that unicorns are real. Unicorns are in the Bible. They're real. You have to believe it. That's what I was taught. And I had to, and then also growing up, I'd ask questions and shit, and people in the church would be like, "Why are you asking so many questions? Like, you just need to have faith. Have faith." And shit like that. So we know all the scams and little doohickeys, right? We know what faith is. It's bullshit. You got to convince us of all this bullshit, right? You got to reinvigorate our cult-like minds to get back into the mindset of wanting to be in a cult. But go on.
If you like. So the things that may be suggested and people may say in regards to why they don't come to Islam, why they don't accept Islam, but they're not true reasons. And they are, number one, that there's no good reasons to believe in God.
They're not true reasons. And then his first reason is there are no true reasons to believe in God. That's what atheists say. I've never fucking said that. My reasons are there's no evidence for God's existence. There's no evidence that there's this big fucking man in the sky controlling everything. He cares where you put your penis, and he fucking like there's no evidence that there's something like that. There's no evidence that there's a unicorn. There's no evidence that there's a fucking leprechaun, and there's no evidence that fucking Muhammad sailed on a fucking Pegasus up into heaven, bro. There's no evidence that any of that shit fucking happened. It's not that there's no true reasons to believe in God. It's that there is no evidence to believe in God. you buffoon.
that there are no good reasons to believe that the Quran is from God. That from an existential perspective is...
And no, it's not that there's no good reasons that the Quran is from God. It's that there's no evidence that the Quran is from God. The only evidence that the Quran is from, it's from a man who couldn't read or write, so he had other people fucking write down his shit, and he was a warlord, and he fucking married a 9-year-old. That's who it's from, Muhammad, right? That's who made up this bullshit, a warlord who wanted to control and subject people, right? Had concubines and shit, right? Of enslaved and had enslaved people, right? That's who wrote the shit. Well, he spoke it, and then someone else wrote it because he couldn't read or write. But apparently, that's who God wanted to talk to. You know, that's who God wanted to come down and talk to. Someone who would marry a 9-year-old. You know, right? Yeah, I buy it. There's no evidence to believe that Muhammad was a prophet. There's no evidence to believe that anything in the Quran even fucking happened. I mean, there is some of it, but I'm saying the magical, fantastical shit, you know?
Islam isn't more fulfilling than atheism. The reality is, if you look at what Islam gives you...
And his last reason is Islam isn't more fulfilling than atheism. That has nothing to do with what's true and what's untrue. You see, I'm interested in what's true and what's untrue. You're interested in fulfillment, and that's whatever, you know, you can find meaning in whatever the fuck you want. I'm fine with you believing in God if that gives you meaning and hope and whatever the fuck you want, right? But fulfillment has nothing to do with the question at hand, which is, how was the universe created, right? Was it created by God? Was it created by a big bang, right? Who cares how fulfilling something is? That's just like, that's like, oh, I didn't like this book, but I like this book, right? That's like, that has nothing to do with any existential question. So I don't even know why that would be one of your reasons, and I've never heard any atheists espout such a question.
Existentially, in regards to the meaning of life, the meaning behind suffering, the reality of this world, where we're going after death, it's very comprehensive. As I've discussed...
Right, yeah, okay, sure. Maybe Islam is more fulfilling to some people because they're like, oh man, I get to go to some place after I die, and you know, there's a reason for all this suffering, and everything happens for a reason, and suffering, like, it isn't needless. And you know, the bad will be punished and the good will be rewarded in the end, so it's all good. You know, maybe that is more comforting to people, but it's not fucking true, right? I don't care about comfort. I care about what's true. You know, I'd like to face the harsh reality that suffering is needless, and it happens all the time, and it's common, and it happens everywhere. And when you die, nothing happens. You're just in a grave, and there's no consciousness, and you just cease to live, and that's it. Lights out. I'd rather hear the truth than believe in fairy tales, especially at, you know, being 23 years old. I don't want to believe in fairy tales anymore. I'm too old for that nonsense.
On my channel many times, atheism actually strips you away from these fundamental realities. It removes ultimate meaning. It removes objective morality. It removes...
Yes, it does remove objective morality, because there is no objective morality. Like, I mean, really, like, I think murder is wrong, right? But someone else could have the opinion that murder is right, you know? And they would, who are they any more of a man than I to say that it isn't? You know what I mean? Because, and then also with, I don't see how with God that makes, okay, let's say there is a God and there's a creator of the universe, right? And he's like, murder is wrong. That doesn't make that his ass right. All because he created something doesn't make the motherfucker right about everything, right? It just makes him a power-hungry buffoon who wants to make laws. I think that everything is subjective. And we have the subjective opinion that murder is wrong because it's good for our species. If we were out murdering everyone, then our species would go extinct, right? So that's why we don't murder from people. And that's why we don't steal. Because if we're out stealing from everyone, I mean, there's some people that steal, but you know what I mean? There's some people that murder. But why the vast majority of people don't steal from people is because, oh shit, if he can steal from me, or if I can steal from him, he can steal from me. And that's bad for me. Right? God damn. It's simple, I don't know, simple evolution, really. It's like survival of the fittest evolution type bullshit, right?
You know, a true sense of identity from an individual. So, what is the reason then? If Islam provides all of these answers, if Islam has good reasons for us, well, we have good reasons to believe that Islam is from God, then why is it that more atheists aren't coming to Islam? The number one reason,
Because it's not real and there's no evidence to support anything that you're saying.
that I've come across over the past decade or so is simply do not want to submit to a higher power.
No. 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 Maybe a Satanist who like actually does believe in God but wants to worship the devil because they're like rebellious or whatever, or they're like a goth girl or something. I don't know. Maybe they would say that, but an atheist would never, ever, ever utter those words, because atheists, they don't believe in God. Okay, if you don't believe in Santa Claus and Santa Claus is real, then who cares about your belief in him, right? He's still real. Same thing with God. If God's real and you don't believe in him, but you like kind of know he's real, but you're like, I don't believe in him, so he can't hurt me, right? He can't send me to hell if I don't believe in him. That's why I don't believe in him, but I kind of know he's real. Then there's still a God, right? That's not how it works. We don't believe in God because there is no fucking God, because there's no evidence that God exists. There's no evidence. What part of there's no evidence don't you get? There's no scientific proof that there's a fucking magic man in the sky. In fact, all the scientific evidence points in the opposite fucking direction. It has nothing to do with... This guy's a fucking moron.
It boils down to this. They do not want to submit to a higher power, because that submission,
so we can be all out to free, and we can sin all we want, and we can do it all we want with no repercussion, because I don't believe in God, so I can go out and sin and do all this shit, and I don't have to pray and do all this shit. No, that's not why atheists don't believe in God. Okay, we could give a fuck less about your sins because we don't think your sins are real.
requires them to give up two things. Number one, seeing themselves as a God, the creator of their own reality, that they have the freedom to do whatever they want. And number two is the desires themselves, to give up certain desires that they may have, which they may...
The sins, exactly what he's talking about. And the first point is an interesting point, because I kind of agree with him. Because, you know, we are kind of our own gods. I kind of agree with that. I mean, he doesn't, but I agree with that statement. We are kind of our own gods, and we kind of do project our own reality because it's all in our fucking heads, right? It's all it is. It's, our consciousness is all in our brains, and that's what projects our reality, and that's how we see shit, and that's how we hear shit, and that's how we perceive this realm, right? So we are kind of our own gods, and I kind of like that.
Be fulfilling in the wrong way. And by the way, this is a false idea out there that Islam requires you to give up all your desires and become a monk. This is not true. You can fulfill your desires, but there is a framework within which you fulfill your desires. This is it. This is the fundamental reason. They do not want to recognize or acknowledge a higher authority. They do not want to submit to that higher authority. They want to continue to do what they want to do. They want to continue to, in one way, worship themselves and do whatever they want, whatever they please, whenever they want. This is what it boils down to.
No, like, out of all those things, you got one of them right, but that has nothing to do with my belief. If I believed in God and I thought God was real and I thought that there was evidence for God's existence and all the science pointed towards God, I would probably submit to God. It has nothing to do with all that shit. It has to do with the scientific evidence. That's what it has to do with.
So the real challenge is, and here's the challenge. I mean, most atheists don't even want to recognize this is what's going on. It's the level of arrogance. And by the way, when I mention this,
it has nothing to do with arrogance. What? That you're arrogant. You're the one saying there's a fucking magic man in the sky and that this fucking 15-year-old 100 book, right? This 15-year-old 1500-year-old book is like proof of his existence, right? You're the fucking arrogant one. You're the one telling us to bow our knee to some fucking magical being that you say that this 1500-year-old book proves, right? You're the arrogant one, not me.
I say most atheists. I'm still speaking about most atheists from a particular group of atheists. You know, the ones that we normally find online. Many people out there, and like I said, many of these so-called atheists or people that may associate with atheism have accepted Islam, are coming towards Islam. But it's this
And good for them. Whatever fucking floats their boat, whatever makes them happy, and I'm fine with those people doing whatever the fuck they want. I just want people to hear out the evidence. And in my life, I like knowing what's true, and I like believing what's true, and I don't want to believe in no fairy tales or none of that bullshit, right? If someone's like, nah, I'd rather live in fantasy world where I believe in fairy tales and I'm just comforted all the time. I want to live in that world. Good for them. If they want to live like that, they can. It's just not for me, and I hope the people listening are more like me, honestly.
whole group of individuals that are so obsessed with themselves and their
I'm
intellect.
not obsessed with myself. And I don't think a lot of atheists are obsessed with themselves either. I think it's good to have a healthy degree of obsession with yourself, right? It's good to think highly of yourself, right? But no, we're not greedy, terrible fucking people. We're not out sinning all the time. We're not out doing bad stuff all the time. We just don't think that God is real. We don't think Allah is real. We don't think Muhammad sailed on a fucking Pegasus. We don't think Jesus is real. You know what I mean?
That they don't feel, or they are deluded into believing that they don't have a need for guidance. This is what it boils down to. And just as a concluding,
No, everyone needs guidance, just not from a magical man in the sky that isn't real. You know what I mean? And from 1500-year-old morals that are quite outdated. Like, you know, there's sexual slavery in there. There's slavery in there. There's, you know, you can marry 9-year-olds. like it's pretty outdated, dude.
as Muslims, we should be careful too, because sometimes we end up, because we are continuously being bombarded by this environment and all of the ideas and ideologies that are around us, we too can fall into this trap where we start to raise ourselves to a position which is not healthy.
All right, I think I've addressed this guy's main arguments in this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like my content. Make sure to share my stupid videos. Make sure to share all my stupid content. Make sure to watch all my stupid content. This has been PlutoCoffins with another video. Hope you all enjoyed. See you guys in the next one.